let's talk about toenail trauma. So the two most high-yield subtopics they love to test on is the Rosenthal classification and hematoma to the nail. By the way, classification questions are great PIMP questions during rotation, so know them. So with this Rosenthal classification, we need to remember the three subcategories. And these subcategories go from distal to proximal. With the type 1 is going to be any injury to that nail that is distal to the distal phalanx. And then type 2 is actually any injury distal to the lunula. And the lunula is a half-shaped moon, whitish portion of that nail. And then finally, we've got type 3. This one is going to actually be proximal to the lunula. So when I'm first starting to remember a classification or anatomy, I like to start by remembering the first letter, and eventually I put everything together and it makes it easier for me to remember it. So DP, DL, PL. So distal to the phalanx, distal to the lunula, proximal to the lunula. Just another way to remember it. Or if you're like me, I love pictures too. If you're working up an injury like this, you need to remember consideration. So you may need to consider a V to Y flap or amputation. But before that, let's do a workup. So our workup consists of getting x-rays to rule out any fractures, okay? You also need to possibly remove the nail bed to assess for nail bed laceration. Very important. If the nail bed's lacerated, we can see the bone. High risk for osteomyelitis. So for type 2, consider a V to Y flap, so you have enough soft tissue to cover the phalanx. For type 3, most likely need to consider an amputation. And you'll definitely see a fair share of these if you're on call, and most of these injuries are due to either lawnmower injuries or I saw a lot of pediatric patient injury to the nail. Now let's get into hematoma of the nail. With this, they tend to ask you if we need to remove the nail or can we decompress the nail. And for this, you need to remember the magic number is 25%. So if less than 25% of the nail is covered with hematoma, we can go ahead and decompress the nail and we won't have to remove the entire nail. But if it's greater than 25%, consider total nail avulsion and then check for the nail bed for any laceration. And most of the time you're removing the nail. A side tip, try to use Prolene. It tends to be less painful when removing sutures compared to nylon, but honestly, absorbable is also another way to go. Here is a picture of somebody that has definitely greater than 25% hematoma. Now let's look into how do we actually drain a subungual hematoma. So the first step is to clean the toe, either betadine or chloroprep. Anesthesia is more of an optional if they're having a lot of pain, definitely recommend it. And then you want to take an 18 gauge needle or a cautery pen, and you want to position this over the centered and most distal aspect of that hematoma and just rotate back and forth, slowly boring through that nail plate. Now this only works best if it's 24 to 48 hours after injury. After that, blood's coagulated, you're off. Just removing the nail would be the best option at that point. And here's a picture of it. And that's all for nail trauma. Until we meet again, study hard. Bye! I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you have any suggestions on other podiatry-related topics I should go over next, leave a comment below or visit the website. Dr. CB signing off. We'll see you in the next video. Bye!